Welcome to the February 2020 edition of CIECAST. I'm Ed Weidman, Executive Director of CIECA. This month, Mike Anderson, owner and president of Collision Advice, will be discussing how to utilize technology to thrive and not just survive in 2020. Mike is the former owner of Wagon Work Collision Centers, two highly acclaimed shops located in Alexandria, Virginia. Currently, he owns and operates Collision Advice, an industry research, reference, and consulting business. Mike is a sought-after speaker, author, and consultant who can discuss and teach on a wide range of topics. He spends his time traveling throughout North America, instructing, serving on advisory boards and committees, and overall supporting the industry. As we start the webinar, I want to remind you that there's no verbal communication between the participants and the presenters. If you have questions during the webinar, please type them in the webinar navigation pane on your screen. We will answer as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. And now, I'll turn the program over to Mike.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you to everyone that is taking time out of their busy Thursday to attend this webinar, and I hope that I can share great value. So the title of my presentation today is Utilizing Technology to Eliminate Human Disruption. And as Ed said, my goal is for everyone in the industry to thrive and not just survive. So let's get started. First of all, it's always important that we cover antitrust and competition guidelines, so please bear with me as I read this. In today's webinar, we will not discuss any issues that would violate antitrust guidelines. Surveys of prices, discounts, and costs are permissible, but only under strict guidelines and only if they're not part of a conspiracy to fix prices or otherwise restrain trade. Remember, the prices charged must be calculated and determined by the business owner alone, and these prices should take into account the cost of doing business and include allowances for a reasonable profit. All content of this webinar is based on standard economic and management principles. Profit margins, labor rates, etc., used in this presentation are to be taken as examples only, and the intent of this webinar is to provide attendees with basic human resource management skills that will enable them or yourself to determine their own individual rates, profit percentages, and other operation aspects of your business strictly on an individual basis using generally accepted management principles. So now that we got that out of the way, let's jump into today's webinar. First of all, it's no secret that as collision repair professionals on the shop side, we're seeing more and more administrative tasks added to us, the collision repair facility. Obviously, we know for a fact that we're seeing like open shop assignments through CCC or RC Connect through Mitchell or even Snapsheet, right? We're being, I won't say forced, but it's right, wrong, or indifferent. The administrative burden is being passed over to the shop. We also know that in today's world, the collision repair facilities are having to spend more and more time researching own repair procedures and using multiple part software programs to source parts. Due to this fact, it's important that we as collision repairers must find ways to utilize technology to work smarter, not harder, and improve our efficiencies. Another key thing that I think as collision repairers we need to do is we must find ways to eliminate human disruption. That means the things that interrupt us in our day-to-day operations or the things that we're doing manually that maybe we could strategically use technology for so that we can stay on task and not get sidetracked. We all know that if you're a back-end estimator and you're writing a supplement with a technician and all of a sudden you get interrupted for something, that technician is now waiting. So what we have to do is we have to try to figure out how to eliminate this start-stop mentality that is in our industry. Another thing I'd like to share is that claims count is declining. We're going to share some statistics with you today and how we need to utilize technology to counter this. So with that said, let's jump on in here. First of all, I do believe that in the collision repair industry, our staffing levels will have to be reevaluated. As somebody that facilitates multiple 20 groups and looks at probably over 400 different shops' financials on a monthly basis, something that we've always measured in the past is something called SGA. That stands for Sales, General, and Administrative. And one of the things we know is in the past, kind of the benchmark was about 9%. The average collision repair facility wanted about 9% of their sales to be allocated for the pay or reimbursement of salaries for a non-productive employee. So basically, if you were doing $200,000 a month in sales, about 9% of that, which would be $18,000 a month, we would generally see that kind of allocated, ladies and gentlemen, to things like estimator pay, parts pay, CSRs, and things of that nature. I will tell you that in the past 5 years, I've seen that number jump up to where the average shop is now spending about 13 to 15% of their sales on non-productive types of salaries. So at the end of the day, I think we have to look at this, right? The amount of administrative burden that is handled onto a shop today, and I don't even say it's a burden, it's just what's expected, right? The customers, they expect a higher level of customer service. It spends much more time today to take and research home repair procedures. So we're seeing this trend that the non-productive portion of your pay of as a percentage of sales is now up to 13 to 15%. Now here's the other thing. It was not uncommon many years ago for an estimator to handle $200,000 a month in sales. I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I do not believe that's realistic anymore. I do not believe that estimators in the collision repair shop environment can handle the same workload in the past because of the time it spends researching OEM repair procedures, sourcing different parts, and even the customer service expectations. Now, some shops have hired CSRs to kind of complement what their estimators do. But those days of an estimator handling $200,000 a month in sales, or those days are gone by. When we do that, things absolutely slip through the cracks. Here's what I will tell you. If you have 4 admin people in your business, a CSR, a front-end estimator, a back-end estimator, and a parts person, those 4 admin people can handle about $250,000 a month in sales on average. Now, I will tell you that at $50,000 increments in sales, you generally have to add another administrative person. But what I do believe is that as a collision repair professionals on the shop side, we must embrace technology to help us to reduce the workload of our staffing. And we're going to talk about that today. Now, one of the things I like to do is when I'm working with a group of shops is always like to take and evaluate what types of things they're doing manually. And what I like to do is I like to talk about how we can start utilizing technology. Now, I have to tell you, I learned this from my great friend Ray Chu at CCC. One of the things Ray Chu did at a 20 group I was facilitating from CCC was, he said, what are the things in a collision repair facility that we need to start doing or stop doing? So here's some things we've come up with in some of these 20 group meetings. First of all, I absolutely believe we have to stop manually scheduling appointments. And what we need to do is we need to start utilizing scheduling technology to optimize our shop production, but also for consumer demand so that consumers can see outside of normal business hours when they can book an appointment with us. So number one is we need to stop manually scheduling appointments. If you're scheduling appointments like in a Word document or Excel or on a piece of paper, we need to stop that. We have to start utilizing technology. The second thing we need to stop doing is we need to stop calling customers the day before their appointment to remind them of their appointment. And instead, we got to utilize technology where we can set it up to automatically send the customer a reminder email or text. Now, if you were in a room with me live right now, one of the things I would ask you is, how many of you have ever gotten a doctor's or dentist appointment text reminder the day before your appointment? So I would ask you to raise your hand, and everyone raises their hands. And then I would always ask the attendees in my audience is, how many of you like getting that text reminder, the day before your appointment? And guess what? Everybody else raises their hands. And so I asked them, I said, why do you like getting a text reminder? They said, you know what? Because I see it and it reminds me so I don't forget, keeps it top of mind. And we talk about all these benefits. And then I look around the room and I ask shops, how many of you are sending your customers text reminders the day before their appointment? And guess what? It's usually less than 10% of my audience. So what we need to do is we need to learn how can we utilize technology. And there's a lot of companies that do this. There's management systems, right? Like CCC or Profinet that can do this. We have companies like Podium that are doing online, Google reviews that can do this. We have companies like Body Shop Booster. But I absolutely encourage you to start embracing technology where we automatically set these reminders up and it's done for us instead of us having to do it manually ourselves. Here's another thing we need to stop doing. We need to stop having paper and pen quality control forms. I can't tell you the amount of shops that I go into, and what these shops are doing is they'll have a piece of paper that has a QC form on it, quality control form, and what it does is it travels with the vehicle generally in a pouch, and then the technicians check off that they've done certain things. Ladies and gentlemen, what happens is either those checklists get lost or people pencil whip it. What do I mean by pencil whip it? They just take initial and draw a line straight down. We need to stop doing that. What we need to do is we need to embrace and start using an electronic quality control form. Now, there's a lot of options for this. If you are an Assured Performance Network shop where you have any OEM certifications through Assured Performance Network, they offer an electronic QC app for free. If you're a CCC management system customer, they have something called Checklist. It's an awesome product. I know Kristen Felder from Collision Hub recently developed a QC electronic checklist. And then there's another app called My Body Shop QC. Not familiar with it, but I know some clients using it. But we absolutely need to start using electronic quality control forms. Now, why is this? Number one is, God forbid you ever got to go to court over anything. But I can tell you right now, to have a pen and paper where somebody just initialed a checklist is not going to carry much weight. But if you have an electronic QC app that kind of date and time stamps when someone did that, and now they can see that it was literally at different dates and times, in some cases, it even geotags where that person was at when they did it, that gives us a lot more substance. But we can also take these electronic quality control forms, and if we have an electronic quality control process, as a body shop manager, we can use this to manage the process and ensure that people are doing it properly. Another thing that our industry needs to quit doing is manually inputting parts invoices. Now, I will tell you, it has been my experience that a parts person in a collision repair facility spends 50% of their time just keying in invoices. You know, when they receive a parts invoice, let's say from ABC Honda, they got to put each individual part number in, the parts price, the cost, the invoice number. I will tell you that is easily, for a parts person at a $250,000 to $300,000 a month shop, that is easily 20 hours a week they spend doing that. And ladies and gentlemen, that's something else we need to stop doing. What we need to do is start embracing technology. Find out from your management system company, because there's several systems that do this, where they will allow you to import the parts invoice right back into your management system so that it posts it for you and eliminates all of that rekeying. So again, this is something that you need to ask your management system. Do I have the ability that if I order a part electronically, I can import that parts invoice back in? In my opinion, every management system should offer this. The next thing that I see a lot of people doing is that, you know, we're trying to assist the customer and we're calling to make their rental reservation and we're on hold. Or we call make it, and maybe that person writes it down and maybe it gets lost. One of the things I love is Enterprise Rental Car, through their ARMS technology, actually has the ability where shops can go on there, and this is a free feature in your ARMS profile, that you can go through and create a reservation for the customer, right? Now here's the deal, I don't have to stop. Remember what we want to do, we want to stop and start, stop and start. We want to eliminate that. So I don't have to take and every time a customer comes in, schedule their rental car reservation for them. What I can do is wait until the end of the day or look 2 days before any cars are scheduled to come in and just go online and knock them all out and real quick. So I think there's a lot of things that we can utilize technology for. And you need to ask yourself, I don't care what segment of the industry in, I don't care if you're an OEM, if you're an insurer, or if you're a collision repair professional. Ask yourself, what are the things I'm doing manually that I need to stop doing? And then how can I utilize technology and start doing? Now, here's the example I was sharing with you about Enterprise Rental Car. When you go into Enterprise Rental Cars, when you log into ARMS, and by the way, this is not an endorsement of Enterprise, it's just sharing with you a feature that I'm familiar with, right? But at the end of the day, every shop in the United States of America and Canada has a free profile with Enterprise Rental Car, and it's called ARMS reporting, right? When you log into that, and you will look when you log in, I mean, it's the first screen you see when you log in, you will see something where it says create a reservation. And if you select that, it allows you to make a reservation for the customer. And I will tell you, not only does it help us to give a better customer service experience, but it also helps Enterprise to actually take in stage cars the night before to ensure that they're going to have rental cars available. Now, another little trick I learned about Enterprise's ARMS reporting is when you log into ARMS, you want to look for a picture of a woman. If you see a picture of a woman, that means that Enterprise's ARMS is integrated with your estimating or management system. If you see a picture of a guy, it means it's not integrated. And if we don't have it integrated, we're going to spend a lot of time manually updating Enterprise's ARMS for rental car extensions when we could be taking advantage of technology to integrate it. So if you were in a room with me, I'd say it out loud with me. Girls are good, guys are bad, right? Girls are good because when you see that, you will see that means that your Enterprise ARMS is integrated with your management or estimating system. Now, I want to talk to you about a term by the name of liquid expectations. And I learned about this from my good friend, Mark Venture. 5 years ago, when a consumer came into our body shop, they were going to compare their experience at our body shop with the experience they've had with direct competitors of us. Now, this might not necessarily be another auto body shop, but if they came into our auto body facility, they were going to compare their experience with us to compare to an experience they had with maybe a dealership where they had their car serviced or their oil changed or tires replaced or glass replacement, right? So think back 5 years ago, Automotive businesses got compared to other automotive businesses. Now, 3 years ago, everybody kind of jumped on the Nordstrom's bandwagon, right? Where everybody talked about the level of customer service that Nordstrom's, provides for their customers. And so everybody wanted to offer a Nordstrom's type of customer service experience, right? And that's kind of the next level that happened 3 years ago. But today, consumers that come into our body shops, or consumers that reach out to us or in need of our services, they have what is called liquid expectations. And a liquid expectation means that when consumers today want to do business with us, they are not comparing their experience at our collision repair facility, or if you're an insurer, they are not comparing their experience with you as an insurance company to other insurance companies. They're comparing their experience with you as a collision repair professional, whether it's an OEM, a dealership, an insurer, or shop, to the experience they've had with Amazon or Uber or Netflix. One of the things I like to ask people is this: how many of you have ever taken an Uber? Almost everybody raises their hands. And then I say, well, what kind of receipt do you get from Uber? And everybody says an electronic. And I said, well, do you all get an electronic receipt? And everybody said yes. I said, well, let me ask you this question. As a body shop, do you offer your customers the option of a printed or emailed receipt, or both? And most collision repair professionals are not doing that. We're still giving customers paper receipts. I went to Lowe's recently, and in Lowe's, they asked me on my checkout, do you want a printed receipt, an email receipt, or both? Ladies and gentlemen, consumers are used to getting electronic receipts. I take a taxi now in any town, automatically get an electronic receipt for my taxi or cab fare. We've got to offer to customers, do you want the ability to receive an electronic receipt? But we also got to think about Amazon, right? The Amazon experience, somebody can go onto Amazon anytime, day or night, and they can buy something. Well, obviously our collision repair facilities are not going to be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But how do we have it create an opportunity where consumers can reach out and contact us after hours? I can even schedule an Uber reservation for the next day, and I can do that through an app. But do I have to wait until you open from 8 to 5 to schedule a reservation, or do I have the ability to schedule a reservation even when you're closed? We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a moment. Now, here's a great statistic you need to know. 36% of all consumers today need our services outside of our normal business hours. 36%, right? See, here's the world we live in, right? Mom and dad both work 2 jobs. They both work, right? So the mom and dad get up in the morning, they get the kids off to school. They get the kids off to school, they go to work. They get back from work, they pick the kids up, take them to extracurricular activities, soccer, dance, ballet, basketball, whatever it is. Then they bring the kids home. Then they help them to get their homework done. Then they feed them dinner. Then they get them in bed. And now it's 9:30 at night. And guess what? 9:30 at night is when I finally have time to deal with my wrecked vehicle, right? Because understand in today's world, most spouses or significant others, they need to make a joint decision, right? Like, okay, are you gonna be able to follow me and pick me up if I drop my car off? Or, do we have the money for the deductible? Can we budget it for this month? Ladies and gentlemen, 36% of all consumers need our services when we are closed. So my question for you is, are you utilizing technology to tap in and capture those 36% of customers? Now, what is it that customers need outside of normal business hours? Number one is they want to schedule an appointment for an estimate or get an estimate. Or number two is they want to schedule an appointment for a drop-off. Here's the next thing, ladies and gentlemen. Did you know that the majority of collision repair accidents, if you take Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, the majority of accidents actually occur on a Saturday? That's the biggest day of the week that accidents occur. My question for you is, if someone has an accident on a Saturday and you're not open, do you have the ability for them to text you after hours through your Google business listing, right? Everyone that is a collision repair professional should absolutely take advantage of their free Google business listing. And you want to make sure that you have the ability for a consumer to be able to text you from your Google business listing on a mobile device. You'll see a picture right here on the right, okay? I have a client of mine that's in Olathe, Kansas. The very first month that they had the ability for consumers to text them from their Google business listing on a mobile device, they captured $22,000 worth of additional work. Yes, and you know when that work was captured? After hours and on Saturdays. So ladies and gentlemen, we have to make ourselves more available to consumers outside of normal business hours. And the best way to utilize that is utilizing technology. Now, just to let you know, the #1 search term by most consumers today is best XYZ near me, right? Best pizza place near me, best body shop near me, best dry cleaners near me. The only way you can show up under the best category is if you have a 4-star Google rating or better. So it's really important, ladies and gentlemen, that you focus on your online reviews, that you have a 4-star rating or better. Now you'll see here, these are my great friends Big Sky Collision, Matt McDonald and his team. Shout out to Rob Moore and Noah and Chad and all those guys and girls out there. You will see right here, if I typed in best auto body shop near Billings, Montana, and you'll probably notice in Google actually populates it now, where it automatically populates it near me. You will see Big Sky showed up number 1. And why is that? It's because they have the most Google reviews, 4 stars or better. Now, again, if you look over here, you'll see again where the shop has the ability for me to text message them after hours. Now, when you log in from your desktop to your Google Business Listing, you're not going to see this option. You have to check it from your mobile device. There are companies out there like Podium, where Podium actually takes and can set this up for you for free. I apologize, that's a phone ringing in the background. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the ability to schedule an appointment after hours, right? Obviously, if you are a CCC user, you have the ability. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen, for that background noise. I'm so sorry. So let's start over here again. For those of you that are a CCC user, you have a free listing on CCC's CarWise website, okay? So this is a consumer-facing website that CCC utilizes, right? So again, apologize for the background noise. So at the end of the day, if you are a CCC user, go to carwise.com and put in your zip code. And what I want you to see right here is this is a collision repair facility that is in my local market area. It's called Lindsay Collision. You see how they have this book appointment feature turned on? Well, remember what I told you a few moments ago. 36% of all consumers need your services outside of normal business hours. So here's my question for you. Do you have the ability for a customer to schedule an appointment when you are closed? Schedule an appointment for an estimate or schedule an appointment for a drop-off? You absolutely need to do this, ladies and gentlemen, to tap into that 36%. So one way to do that is have a book appointment feature turned on in your CCC CarWise listing. If you look at things, for example, like I know iCar right now has Body Shopology, which is a consumer-facing website, and you have a link to your website in there. Do you have the ability for consumer to book an appointment on your website? So ladies and gentlemen, whatever type of online search engine device someone is using, you want to make sure they have the ability to be able to find your shop, but number 2, to schedule an appointment after hours. Now, let's look at something else here real quick. One of the things I often see is if I go into a shop's profile on CCC's CarWise, or I go into a shop's profile on their Google business listing or their Facebook page, one of the things I don't always see is what your first picture looks like, and that should be what your shop looks like from street view. So let's say that I go online, I type in best auto body shop near me, and your Google business listing pops up. I want the first photo to be of what your business looks like from a street view. Why is that? So if I'm driving on the road, I will recognize your building when I see it. So I don't care whether it's CCC's CarWise, a Google business listing, if it's Facebook, whatever you have, or maybe if it's Yelp, make sure the first picture that pops up for that consumer is a picture of what your building looks like from street view. This is critical. I would also discourage you from having any photos of disassembled cars or your paint booth or frame machine. None of that means anything to consumers. So you want your first photo to be what your shop looks like from street view, and number 2, what your inside of your waiting room looks like, and maybe some photos of happy customers, and more importantly, photos of your staff. Now, another thing is make sure you're utilizing technology to have any of your online reviews tied into your website. You can have all of your Google reviews tied into your website. Now, let me tell you a benefit of that, and that is that every time you get a new Google review, your website, Google reviews that as new content, and it actually tends to keep putting you up back to the top of the search engines. I learned that from my good friend Mark Claypool at Optimal Automotive Websites. If you have CarWise reviews through CCC and you use them for your CSI services, see if you can have those CarWise or CSI reviews tied back in your website. If you're using 10-Point Complete or Phoenix Solutions for your CSI, make sure you can get those CSI reviews tied back into your website, because most of the companies that can do this for you, it doesn't cost you a dime. Now, here's what I do predict. This is a Mike Anderson prediction, right? I believe that online reviews may become the CSI of the future, right? So right now there's a lot of insurers and a lot of OEMs that actually take and they require you to use a CSI survey company. And I totally get it, and I agree with it, and I support it, right? Totally get it. But what some OEMs and insurers have shared with me is they believe that consumers are getting survey fatigue, where they're getting too many surveys. So the first solution to that is for our industry to kind of move to like where we have one survey, not necessarily a company, but maybe one provider, or, you know, we don't have to send multiple CSI surveys. But what some insurers and OEMs are telling me is Mike, we're looking at online reviews as to becoming the CSI of the future, because they feel that some places and companies have learned to game the system, and they've learned how to game the system to get really good CSI reviews. So ladies and gentlemen, as I'm sure many of you are aware, State Farm has never done CSI surveys in the past. They never did CSI surveys like other OEMs or insurers. So what State Farm recently announced, though, was that any of your Google reviews would be tied back into your State Farm shop locator. So if you're a State Farm Select Service shop, your Google reviews are now tied into the State Farm shop locator. And I have to believe, State Farm has not told this to me, so this is Mike Anderson speaking on my own accord. I have to believe that consumers have kind of changed where they're not so trusting of insurance companies for referrals, and they still would go online and do their homework. So I have to believe that State Farm has now tied Google reviews into their State Farm shop locator to kind of validate the shops that they are, possibly referring to a consumer that may be in need of a shop. So at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, as I think you've seen this trend where State Farm is now tying Google reviews into their State Farm shop locator, I can also tell you that I know some OEMs that are also considering the same thing. So we absolutely have to utilize technology to make sure that we're maximizing our online reviews. Now keep in mind, in order for you to be found on a Google or a Yelp search, understand that the number one search term is what, number two is how. The third number one search term or top three search term is the word best. Best dry cleaners near me, best pizza place near me, etc. And again, you've got to have 4 stars or better to show up under this category. Now, there are a lot of companies that can help you to get online reviews. There's companies like Podium. I believe Mark Claypool from Optimal Automotive is helping shops to do this. I think there's another company called Proclaim. So there are companies doing this, but I absolutely encourage you that if you don't really have the staff, because remember, we're trying to eliminate all the human disruptions of our employees having to ask a customer, will you do this? So if we can automate this process, I think it's absolutely valuable for us. Now, let's talk about photo estimating. Photo estimating is absolutely a hot topic out here in the industry. I follow a lot of the Facebook forums, and there are people out there that are very adamant against photo estimating and virtual inspections. And I totally get it. I understand both sides, right? I understand the side of the shops. I also understand the insurance company's side. But here's what I believe is Mike Anderson, and I hope I don't create any enemies out of this, but I believe photo estimating is something that our industry needs, but I think we got to have some parameters around it. First of all, let me back up. I do not believe photo estimating is a perfect solution, but I have to believe we have to find a way to connect with that customer after hours. So I absolutely, Mike Anderson Collision Advice, I believe there's a difference between trying to settle a $30,000 claim via photos versus a marketing strategy, or trying to get an approval on just a $30 bracket. So let's talk about this a little bit more, right? What we need to understand is photo estimating, there's absolutely a difference between settling a claim and a marketing strategy. And I think we need to remember that 36% of all consumers today need our services outside of normal business hours. And today's couples want to make a joint decision when they're both together to discuss alternate transportation or finances or things of that matter. So I believe that offering it as a marketing strategy actually can make sense to a shop to tap into that 36% of people that need us after hours. But here's the other thing I think is a benefit of photo estimating that nobody's talking about. I think number one is most of my clients, what I get them to do is I get them to get the consumer to submit photos before the vehicle comes in, so we can get a head start on researching home repair procedures. Now, I do not recommend you research home repair procedures 30 days before the car comes in, because things could change in that short of a time frame. What I do believe is we could get a jump start on researching home repair procedures anywhere from 24 to 48 hours before the vehicle comes in. So if I can have a photo estimating application where the consumer can submit photos to me, then I can get a head start on researching those home repair procedures. Because I'm going to tell you, I do not consider by any means that I am the best OEM researcher person in the industry. I will never lay claim to that. But what I will say is I do believe I'm above average. And I can tell you, I wrote an estimate on a quarter panel replacement recently on a specific vehicle. And I will tell you that Mike Anderson, somebody that I consider to be above average, not the best, it took me 4 hours to research all the home repair procedures to write an accurate estimate on a quarter panel replacement on an Asian vehicle. And so if I could get a jump start on that, where I could get 70 to 80% of that research done before the vehicle gets here, then I can improve my cycle time. So I absolutely believe photo estimating can be used, not for estimating, but to get a jump start on home repair procedures. But here's what else I think. I think photo estimating can help us to eliminate a lot of these tire kickers, right? Like I'm sure that many of you do not even want to touch rust repairs or restorations. You know, if a customer comes in and says, I want an estimate, and now you got an estimator has to stop what they're doing and they walk outside, and then you got to spend 30 minutes letting the customer down slowly that, hey, I don't do rust work or restorations. But if that customer would have submitted that request via photos, I could have eliminated that person even coming to my shop and wasted their time where they came to me by telling them. So I think we can utilize it to eliminate tire kickers. Another benefit of receiving photos before the vehicle arrives is also to triage or schedule our work. I may look at something and realize that's a small job, and my next appointment for a category 1 job could be tomorrow, but my next appointment for a category 5 job could be next week. So again, I think that we should not rush to decisions about photo estimating or virtual re-inspections. I think we have to figure out there's probably a right application. I don't think it's black or white. I think it's probably a lot of gray area. Now, if you look right here, again, bragging on my friends here at Big Sky Collision, you will see that on their website, it says easy estimate tool, right? This is something that is consumer facing. When the consumer logs into their website, they can submit photos. Now, I will tell you, if you have a consumer that writes estimates by photos or an estimator, they got to be really, really talented. But I think it's also important we set clear expectations that we cannot write an accurate estimate without a disassembly of the vehicle. So again, I want to make sure everybody understands and doesn't misinterpret my comments. I'm not trying to settle a claim, but if I can get the photos, and I can use this as a strategy to get the photos to get a head start for scheduling, to get a head start on how to research my own repair procedures, or to eliminate tire kickers, there could be some value to this. Now, one of the things that I like to subscribe to is multiple industry trade publications, and one of those is a publication called Property Casualty 360. This is an insurance publication. And one of the things that I thought was interesting here is it says the use of mobile apps in the estimation process, which allows claimants to submit photos or videos of their damaged vehicle directly to the insurer, is growing in popularity, with 42% of claimants using the technology. When insurers use these photos or videos, overall satisfaction surges. However, when insurers don't use the photos or videos and still need to send an adjuster, overall satisfaction falls by 29 points. So I do believe that there are probably some reasons why insurers want to use photo-based estimating or virtual re-inspections. I'm sure it's no secret that maybe if people cash out, they don't have to pay as much. Let's just call it what it is, right? It saves them some money. But I also believe that consumers are probably more demanding today because of what they're able to do through Amazon Prime and Uber. And this is the way of some people trying to take and compete in that market. So I want to share a story with you real quick. And this is why I want to make sure you understand my position on photo-based estimating, right? So my dad is 83 years old. And this past summer, my dad was out, he had just got out of having surgery on his legs where he had some stents installed. And I said, Dad, I'm gonna come over on a Sunday morning and help you cut grass. I'm driving down the road to my dad's house on a Sunday morning. I see a lot of black smoke in the air. I'm like, what in the heck is my dad doing? And I pull up, and my dad's zero-turn lawnmower is actually on fire. Now, my dad fortunately wasn't hurt. Even though he just got out of the hospital, he crawled away from the lawnmower, and man, it burnt this lawnmower to the ground. This was a Ferris zero-turn mower, and it burned it to the ground. These are actual photos of it, right? Burnt the rubber off the tires. I mean, burnt this vehicle to the ground, burnt the grass, the trees, everything, right? So I got the fire put out, and this happened at 11:30 on a Sunday. So what I immediately did is, my dad's insured with USAA. I went in and called USAA. My dad's a little bit hard of hearing, and I said, hey, my dad's sitting here with me. He's going to give you permission to speak to me. He just needs to make a claim. So my dad gave them permission, and I'm speaking to the lady at USAA, and she said, can you tell me what happened? I said, I'm not sure what happened, but my dad's lawnmower caught on fire. I said, it's burnt to the ground. What do we need to do? First thing she said was, can you send me photos of it? So I sent photos of my dad's lawnmower to her. Now this happened, my dad's lawnmower caught on fire at 11:30. This was around 1 o'clock on a Sunday. I was able to reach out to a USAA representative outside of normal business hours, right? I submitted the photos to her. By about 3 o'clock, she emailed me back and said, can you submit the invoice to me where your dad bought the lawnmower? So I sent the invoice where my dad bought the lawnmower from Gardner Equipment and Supply, and she emails me back and says, can you get a price for a replacement lawnmower for me? I said, sure, but I can't get it till Monday morning. Monday morning, 9 o'clock, I call Gardner Equipment and Supply. They send me an email invoice for a replacement lawnmower. I send it to USAA. And let me tell you something. My dad's lawnmower caught on fire and burnt to the ground at 11:30 on a Sunday. By 3 o'clock on Monday, right? That's about 27, 28 hours from the time of my dad's loss. My dad had a check in his bank account for the full amount of a new lawnmower from USA Insurance. So first of all, big shout out to USAA for taking care of my dad, who's a disabled vet. But number two is, ladies and gentlemen, I was blown away by how easy this was. Now I understand there's a difference in replacing a lawnmower that burnt to the ground versus trying to settle a vehicle that needs to be disassembled. I totally get it. But that's why I'm saying I don't think it's black or white. I think there's some gray here. And I think that when we look at applications like this, there's absolutely a need for this in our industry. But I do believe we need to get better. I do not believe we have the perfect solution, but hopefully that will come in time. Now, if we look at some data from CCC, you will see that from 2013 to 2017, there really wasn't much photo estimating or virtual re-inspections. But you will see here that in 2018 and then 2019, that has started to grow. I will give you my personal opinion about why I believe that it is growing. I believe that severity is rising for insurers, and I think just as body shops had to do 5 or 6 years ago, I think many of us body shops back, maybe even 10 years ago, we had to figure out how to cut expenses. And I think as collision repairers, we were first to cut expenses, and the biggest 2 expenses anyone can cut is bricks and mortar and personnel. And I think that because severity is rising, that's probably why we've seen some insurers shut down their driving claim centers, and that's probably why we've seen some insurers lay off some people. But I think the insurers still have to process claims, and they're figuring out how can we do this utilizing technology so we can control overhead expense because severity is going up. So I think when you look at this data from CCC, you will see the bottom bar here is DRP claims. How many are handled as a DRP? That has actually started to go back up a little bit right here in 2019 third quarter. But what's shrinking is service centers of the insurance companies, as well as staff appraisers is shrinking, as well as independent appraisers. And I think that's getting replaced by this photo estimating and virtual inspections. Now, enough of that. Let's move on to something else here. I believe right now, based on data that I've seen from a variety of industry sources, that ADAS is starting to have an impact. I do believe that last year, depending on what part of the United States you lived in, that claims were down anywhere from 2% to 7%. I think it varied by region of the country. I do believe that with ADAS, claims will continue to climb. I think you'll see less and less accidents, but probably at a very small rate of 2 to 5% per year. However, I have a saying in my life, and that saying is this: lots of sales cover lots of sins. When shops are busy and they have lots of sales, they tend to think that everything's okay. And here's what I believe. I believe last year in 2019, that because of the scanning and calibration costs, severity went up. And I believe that as severity went up, it actually masked that car count may be down to shops. So again, as severity goes up, we think our sales are the same, or we even think our sales increased, but I think it's a false sense of security, right? Because severity went up because, again, calibrations and severity, but now that severity is kind of where it's at, I think what happened was it kind of hid the fact that we might have less car count coming to our door. So I think it's really important that we start utilizing technology as a collision repair professional to see what our car count is to the door. Now, if you look right here, this is some information from the Insurance Information Institute. You will see that they showed that in 2018, claims were down in frequency, accident frequency, less than 1%. Now, if we look right here, this is some data from CCC, from Susanna Gotch, from her industry reports. So thank you, Susanna, for allowing us to use this. You will see that what they're looking at is the impact in number of accidents as ADAS grows. Now, you'll see right here, again, we're right here in the 2020 area, right? You will see that they're saying, look, it's only going to be about 2 or 3%. And the next year, 2 or 3%. And next year, 2 or 3%, right? So it's going to be a very gradual shift. But what I believe is I believe that eventually you might see automobile manufacturers or even the federal government offer some sales incentives where they might try to incentivize people to buy cars that have these new ADAS features versus trying to replace some of the older cars on the road. And if that happens, then this will start to accelerate. So at the end of the day, even though it's only shrinking by 2 to 3% every year, we have to make sure we're looking at car count and making sure we have enough car count coming to the door. So again, you'll see some more data showing what frequency projection is. So I said this a few moments ago, lots of sales cover lots of sins. What I tend to see is that when shops are making money or sales are up, we quit paying attention to the things that made us successful. And one of those things that I think we quit paying attention to is that when we have lots of work or sales are up, we quit focusing on the capture rate, which is when we write estimates, did the customer schedule an appointment? Or when we write an estimate, they don't schedule an appointment, they say, I got to check with my spouse, or I got to check something, or check with the insurance company. Are we following up? And I believe that lots of sales cover lots of sins. And I believe, again, I know I've said this 3 times, but I think it's really critical, is that as sales have gone up, that it's not up because we're getting more car count to the door, but it's up because severity has increased. So I think that what we need to do as collision repair professionals is we need to monitor where our work is coming from. I think 2 great ways to do this is the Enterprise Body Shop Scorecard And the second thing is utilizing the referral or source report in your management system. Now, again, one of the things that Enterprise does provide to shops on a monthly basis is something called the Body Shop Scorecard. Now, Enterprise generally likes to deliver these in person so they can go over with them with you. But unfortunately, body shops, we sometimes aren't so friendly to Enterprise or even Havis or Hertz people when they come around, and we kind of blow them off. I would tell you, the next time a rental car person comes by your business, I would encourage you to look at them as a partner because of the data they can provide to you. So one of the things I love about Enterprise is they have something called the Body Shop Scorecard. And here's what it does. It tells me year-over-year comparisons to how many of my customers were in a rental car for a specific insurance carrier compared year over year. So if I look right here, it looks like for this insurance company, I actually had more people in 2018 in rental cars from that insurance company than I did the year before. So that means my car count is up for that specific insurance company. But now I get in here and look at this insurance company, it looks like my car count is down, right? So what does that mean? Data means one of two things, celebrate or go look. If I see that my car count is down based off of this Enterprise report, then I need to figure out what's going on. Now, maybe there was a shift where State Farm moved to Hertz, and therefore that's why your car count is down, right? Okay, there's a plausible explanation there. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I see if my car count is down. It could be because maybe that insurance company doesn't have as good as presence in my area. Hate to talk about a bad subject, but let's just talk straight, right? It could be an indication that steering's going on. Maybe there's a particular carrier that's steering work from you, and that's why your car count's down. Or maybe it's also because you as a shop are getting assignments from an insurance company, or maybe we're not being convenient for them to allow them to schedule an appointment, and we're losing out on those 36% of people outside of normal business hours. Whatever the case may be, it's important that we monitor what our car count is. Now, if you have a management system, whether it's CCC, ProfitNet, Mitchell's Repair Center, Nexius, Summit, Autotex, whatever management system you have, I have found they all have the ability for you to track where your work is coming from, right? This is an example of a referral report from ProfitNet. But what you'll see here is the shop just has in here, no referred by, no referred by, no referred by, or over here they just have insurance DRP, insurance DRP, insurance DRP. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not very good detail. The attention is in the detail. I want to know who referred them. Is a specific an insurance agent? I don't want to know that they came to me because I'm a DRP. I want to know, were they coming to me anyway and just happen to have that insurance company? Or is a specific dealership referring work to me? Or was it my Google ad? Or was it my Facebook? Or was my website? Ladies and gentlemen, the attention is in the detail. And I will tell you, 99% of all shops I go into, I mean this in love, understand the intent of my heart is, I want you to thrive and not survive. You don't have very good detail in this. And it doesn't allow you to track if your work is declining from a specific work source or referral source so that you can be proactive to find out if something's going on. Maybe you get a lot of work from a dealership and all of a sudden your car count's declining because there's somebody new in service and they're sending it to their buddy or their friend. So we want to have that conversation and be proactive with it. So 2 ways to determine where our car count is dropping or not: Enterprise Body Shop Scorecard or your referral or source report in your management system. Now, one of the other things we hear a lot of people talk today about is artificial intelligence, right? CCC, this is one of their advertisements. It's on their website. It says predict a total loss from a single photo in seconds. And what we know is, looking at Susanna Gotch's State of the Industry, that CCC has said that its algorithms today show that they are 90% accurate in predicting when an insurer will declare a car a total loss. So what does this mean to us as a collision repair professional? First of all, this is not about CCC. Because I can tell you, I have to believe that Mitchell and Autotex are working on the same exact terminology. I just couldn't find anything on the internet about it when I did a Google search. Here's what I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen. I absolutely believe that as severity continues to rise, insurance companies have to figure a way to control cost. What is one way for them to control cost? Reducing people and reducing bricks and mortar. Moving some of that over to the body shop side, right? The second way is think about a vehicle that's in an accident. So a car's in an accident. We're closed. So the car gets towed to a tow yard. Let's say that was a $200 tow bill. Now all of a sudden the car sits there for 2 days and it's $200 in storage. And all of a sudden the car gets towed to the body shop. And let's say that was a $200 tow bill. And then the body shop takes the car apart, and then they've got $400 in storage. And then they've got $200 in admin fees and teardown fees. And now the car's declared a total loss, and it's got to get towed to an auction yard, and that's another $200, right? Well, now I'm up to $1,200 to $1,400 in expenses for that insurance company on that total loss. Not to mention that car is going to bring a lot less value at the auction if it's disassembled. So if an insurance company can embrace artificial intelligence to identify that a vehicle is a total loss through a photo or a video, and they can just tow it straight to the auction yard, they just save themselves $1,200 in storage and tear down, and not to mention the lower value of a vehicle. So I got to tell you, it makes perfect sense to me as why an insurer would want to utilize artificial intelligence to try to identify total losses, right? Not to mention rental car costs while they're trying to sell the claim, etc. So I absolutely believe artificial intelligence will start to grow in our industry for predicting total losses. Now I will tell you, I had the opportunity to attend a Verifax conference last year in Canada. In Farzam, shout out to Farzam, he had a gentleman there from a university in New York that was there and speaking on artificial intelligence. And one of the things that this gentleman said is that artificial intelligence still has a hard time determining whether it is a bicycle or a motorcycle, or is it a cat or a dog. So I don't think artificial intelligence is as advanced as a lot of us would like to think. Another one of the things he shared in his presentation was that when you see that video on YouTube of the robot that jumps on top of a box, he said, you know what, it probably took 100 takes for that robot to jump on that box one time and do it properly, right? So with that said, do I think artificial intelligence is going to continue to be in our industry? Do I think there's going to be a lot of applications for it? Absolutely. But here's where I want to caution you. I know, and I work with a lot of non-DRP shops. They're non-DRPs. And honestly, a huge profit percenter for them is on storage. So I could tell you of one collision repairer that I work with, and that collision repairer, they had $100,000 in storage last year they collected. And we know that that's pretty much 100% gross profit. Well, for those of you that are making a lot of your money on storage, understand this. If artificial intelligence starts coming into our industry and they can identify total losses and they don't end up in your shop, you will start to lose out on that storage and you will lose that profit center. So I think if you want to thrive and not just survive, you got to start working on a plan B on how you're going to replace that lost gross profit in the future. Now, one of the other benefits of that is that, if you're a DRP shop, you don't waste your time tearing down a car that you're not going to make any money on, so you can focus on repairable vehicles. That's a benefit, right? The negative thing is, again, for shops that rely on storage as part of their profit margins, that's probably going to go away in the future, and you're going to have to replace that lost revenue, so think about that. Now, I want to share another golden nugget from you, right? And that is, let's talk about total losses, right? When a vehicle's a total loss, before the car is released to the salvage yard, should we as collision repair professionals be asking the customer, do they want us to erase their personal data, right? Think about most consumers today, right? They have their cell phones connected, all their contact lists is in there. They may have their garage door codes. If it's got a GPS built in, it's going to have down their home where they go to every day. They have home in there. They punch home. At the end of the day, do consumers really want this information in a car when it goes to a salvage yard? I think as collision repair professionals, we need to be asking the consumer, would you like us to erase your personal data? And how to do that is usually found in the owner's manual. Here's an interesting article that I found that is from the National Automobile Dealers Association. It says personal data in your car, privacy checklist when selling or renting a vehicle, right? How to delete your phone contact, delete out your mobile application. Maybe this is something that CIECA needs to come up with a standard for how we need to take and do this. But I think for insurers, you got to make sure you're also looking out for your consumer, right? Because God knows if somebody was to find out where I lived at and they broke in my house and I'm filing a home warranty claim. So I think erasing the customer's personal data benefits the consumer, and I think the shop needs to offer that, and it also benefits the insurer. Now, remember we talked about 36% of all consumers need our services outside of normal business hours, right? And one of the things we talked about is when do accidents occur? So if you look right here, ladies and gentlemen, you will see that at days of the week, right? This was in 2016, right? This is some older data, but you'll see the majority of vehicle accidents actually occur on a Saturday, right? And then Friday would be the next biggest day, and then Sunday. So 2 of the top 3 days were typically closed. Do you have the ability for consumer to connect with you after hours? Now let's also look at time of day, right? Look at how many accidents occur from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. or how many accidents occur from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. or how many accidents occur from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. or 10 p.m. to midnight. Ladies and gentlemen, we're closed when a lot of accidents occur. And ladies and gentlemen, if you started looking at this, we absolutely need to make sure that we're available to customers after hours. And again, what do they need? They want to get an estimate or schedule an appointment for an estimate or drop off. You absolutely have to utilize technology for people to be able to schedule appointments with you after hours and connect with you. Now, We talked about electronic QC checklist, right? Those days of pen and paper QC forms is old school, ladies and gentlemen. In my opinion, if you are a collision repairer today, you should and absolutely must be using an electronic quality control app, right? Why? Because it will time and date stamp it, and in some cases even geotag where the person was at when they checked it. Now, there's a lot of benefits to this, right? It's a way to verify for the OEM that things were done, especially when we have to submit a photo as part of the electronic quality control checklist, right? Like on destructive test welds. There are benefits to insurers. We're reducing your liability. And there's also a benefit to the consumer that we're helping ensure they're going to get a safe and proper repair. But I also believe the biggest benefit of an electronic QC checklist is it holds every one of your employees to the same standard, right? Now, there are some challenges on electronic QC checklists, like is there enough storage in the cloud or wherever it stores the data at on your desktop or hard drive? Is there enough storage place, right, to store all these checklists, especially if we're taking photos of like destructive test welds or we're storing our own repair procedures in there. I will also tell you that a lot of times I hear people say, well, if you work in a flat rate shop, you know, you're not going to have good quality. I call baloney on that, right? Pay plans do not dictate quality. What dictates quality is an owner or a manager of a store, right? I don't care what your pay plan is. If you're not an owner or a manager that's dictating quality, and what's that saying, you expect what you inspect, you absolutely will dictate quality. And you need to monitor it and you need to audit it. And that's why I believe an electronic QC checklist is a great way as an owner or manager to audit quality, because we can help to hold people accountable. Now, there's a lot of electronic QC apps available out there. Again, if you're a Assured Performance Network shop through Scott Biggs and his team, shout out to Liz Stein there. They have what's called Repair Doc. It is free to you if you're an OEM certified shop through APN. If you're a CCC1 user, they have what's called Checklist. Great product. I use it. I love it. I love the way I can customize it. Kristen Felder from Collision Hub, she has an electronic QC list. You can access that through her website, collisionhub.com. And then there's an app called myqciq.com. In fairness, I've only seen this when it was in its early stages, so I don't really have any insight on it, but I do believe that's another alternative, and I've heard some great reviews on that as well. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, make sure whatever electronic QC app you use allows it to date and timestamp it. And also, one of the other things I've heard about some of these electronic QC lists is it allows the name of the technician to be put in there, right? And you tell the technicians, look, when you take and sign off on this or click this electronic QC app, should we ever have to go to court, you're going to be saying that you did this. So by gosh, you better make sure you did it. So I think there's some great opportunity here for our industry in regards to the runway for electronic QC apps. Let's talk a little bit about test drives. Real quickly, if you're researching home repair procedures, test drives are often referred to as one of three different terms: a road test, an action test, or a drive cycle. These are terms the OEMs will use. It varies by OEMs. Again, you're not necessarily going to see in their test drive, it's going to say perform a road test, perform an action test, a drive cycle. When we do test drives, there are 5 things we need to consider. Number 1 is, how long do I need to drive the vehicle? 15 seconds or 20 minutes? What distance do I need to drive? Like 2 miles or 20 feet? What speed do I need to drive? What driving pattern? For example, recently, I wrote an estimate to replace a windshield in a General Motors vehicle, and it told me I had to drive the vehicle in 3 figure-8s in order to recalibrate the compass, right? I had another vehicle recently, a Fiat vehicle that was an electric vehicle, and it said that I had to drive the vehicle in circles with all the accessories on until I brought the electric battery charge down to less than 20% before I painted the vehicle. And the other thing you have to consider is, what are the road conditions? Do I have to have markings on the road so cameras can calibrate themselves? So, for example, I may have to test drive a vehicle 2 miles above 20 miles an hour in a straight line. Or I may have to drive a vehicle in circles, or I may have to drive a vehicle in a figure-8. All of these things are considerations for test drives. But at the end of the day, the challenges for us, and I think we need to look to technology on this, is how do we document our test drive? Number 1, for reimbursement from an insurer, but they can also make sure that you did it. But number 2, from a liability standpoint. Now, I do know that Frank Turlip has come out with a new product that is called testdrivecopilot.com. Not familiar with that product, but I would encourage you to check it out. But I also know a lot of shops are using GoPros. They're mounting GoPros inside the vehicle to capture the shop employee while they're test driving the vehicle to prove that the conditions were followed. Here's another little quick tip for you. When I had my businesses, one of the things I would always do every year is I would take all my employees' driver's license numbers and they would fill out a form, and I'd send it to my business insurance, and my business insurance company would run background checks on them for their driver's license to make sure they don't know points or DUIs or suspended license. So I would encourage you once a year, connect with your business insurance broker and ask them if they can help you to find out, make sure all your employees' driver's licenses are valid and they can be driving customers' vehicles. Because you'd be surprised how many of your employees may have a suspended driver's license or a lot of points, and they may be a liability to be driving a consumer's vehicle. Now, another thing I want to talk about real quick, because we're going to try to wrap this webinar up here in the next 5 to 6 minutes, is Wi-Fi. I believe Wi-Fi is absolutely needed today, but it's going to be needed more in the future. I think as a collision repair professional today, you have to ask yourself, what is the Wi-Fi strength in my building? Because I got to tell you, most body shops I go into, your Wi-Fi sucks. And I mean that in love, but it just is horrible, right? Because you got to think about this. You know, I understand I'm not trying to settle a $10,000 claim with you, virtual reinspection, right? But what I am okay with is that if Allstate wants to use their virtual assist, right, to just let me show them a $20 bracket I need or a 2-hour repair time on an apron, if I can do that, cut my repair time down, I'm good to that. So I think you're going to see more re-inspections done virtually in the future. That's going to require Wi-Fi. But let's go back to that electronic QC app also, right? Does your Wi-Fi support 3 estimators online doing virtual re-inspections, as well as 6 technicians all uploading photos or documentation to whatever your electronic QC app is to store for you to protect yourself? We could have 8 to 10 employees on Wi-Fi all at the same time. So what do we need to do is make sure you check your Wi-Fi strength. Number 2 is I think we'd absolutely need some photo training. I've seen some photos that shops submit to insurers, and quite honestly, collision repairers, I love you, but we are horrible at submitting photos, right? Get your employees into some good training for how to take good photos, right? Any Apple store in your town offers free photo clinics. Get them to do a photo clinic for your employees on how to take better photos with a mobile device. I know Jeff Peavy and the Automotive Management Institute have a ton of resources that Roger Cada has built on collision photography. And I know Kristen Felder and Larry Montanez have done a lot of videos as well on Collision Hub's YouTube channel on collision photography. So ladies and gentlemen, there are training things out there for us. So if we know we're going to see more virtual re-inspections, more photo-based type estimating things, what we need to do is get good Wi-Fi and teach our people how to take photos. This is critical in the future. Matter of fact, lighting is also critical because it absolutely helps you. And there's a really good light from a company called BTAG Flatliner that I love. We can talk about that another time or day. Now let's talk about telematics and connected vehicles, right? First of all, we know that General Motors started with connected vehicles in 1996, and that was with OnStar, right? We know that in 2016, there were 250 companies with over $38 billion in funding in the connected car space. Since 2016 to 2020, just 4 years later, that has grown from a $36 billion a year market to a $141 billion a year market, right? And that's right now, today's world. So we know that the connected vehicle industry is a very, very big industry, and it's coming to us at lightning speed, right? Now, one of the things we also see some data from IHS Automotive and CCC is that in 2020, look from 2019, 28 million vehicles had connected cars. In 2020, that's 42 million, right? We look at 2 years from now, that's going to be 74 million. So ladies and gentlemen, it's almost doubling with the amount of vehicles that are going to be on the road that will be connected. In 2 years, it'll be twice as much as what we have today. So ladies and gentlemen, here's what we need to understand. There's a couple things that need to happen. Number one is vehicles have to have the technology. We know that about 87% of all cars sold by 2022 will have the technology to be connected. Number two is there's going to be a generational shift. My 83-year-old dad doesn't want OnStar to know where he's at, or anybody else for that matter, right? But as you see more of my 27 and 23-year-old nieces growing up, they want the ability to have their car connected to the internet because they don't buy CDs anymore. They stream their music, and they also want to be able to push a button in their headliner area or on their dash when they have a flat tire. So in the next 2 years, you're going to see more vehicles have the technology. In the next 2 years, you're going to have a generational shift where people are okay with privacy concerns. And the third part is it has to become affordable, right? So I believe that you will absolutely see affordability come into play. I know that Lexus is advertising right now that when you buy a Lexus, it has free connectivity for the first 10 years. Nissan advertises free for the first 3 years. So ladies and gentlemen, I think in the next 2 years, you're going to see a huge, huge boom of vehicles that are connected, and they're going to have this automatic collision notification feature turned on in the vehicle. And when that happens, we may see a shift in the way claims are also handled as well. But I do believe the challenge in the future for collision repairers is that we are going to have to be educated as to figuring out if the vehicle's connected, and more importantly, is how to place that vehicle in service mode so that it doesn't notify the customer when we disassemble the vehicle. So I would encourage you to look in some of the owner's manuals, go in the owner repair procedures, and just type in whatever the name is of that OEM's feature, like Subaru Starlink or GM OnStar, Mercedes-Benz Embrace. And generally in the owner's manual or in the owner repair procedures, it will tell you how to place that vehicle in service mode. Because as we see more cars connected to the internet, the last thing we're going to want to do is have customers getting notified that there's something wrong with their car when we take it apart. So I think that's something else we got to watch for in the future, ladies and gentlemen. You will see here that a lot of consumers today, they want their vehicles connected because 58% of them said, I want to be notified when my oil's low or my tire's getting flat. 55% of consumers said, I want my car connected because I want assisted driving features, right? And then 38% love roadside assistance, and 37% said, quite frankly, I just love the Wi-Fi. So I can stream my music, or if I have little kids and they're in the back seat, they can watch Netflix. So I believe, ladies and gentlemen, in the future, you're going to see more and more consumers that want their cars connected. I also would encourage you to keep an eye on what's going on with 5G, because I also think that's key to the future. I think also as we get connected vehicles, it will probably also change the way that consumers buy insurance, because you can pay an insurance premium based on how you drive or when you drive. I absolutely do not want an insurance policy based on how I drive. That is someone that's on the road over 300 days a year. I would love to have an insurance policy based on when I drive. So I think you'll also see some drastic changes in the way people pay for insurance in the future as well. Now, when all these cars are connected, what is this going to do? It's also going to lead into how consumers will find us. And that is through voice activated searches, right? What we'll do is, as we see more and more cars connected to the internet, as I shared with you earlier, the #1 voice search term is how, #2 is what, and the #3 is best. We're seeing a trend where almost 50% of all consumers today use their phone or mobile device to make a voice activated search versus typing on a keyboard. And I think that what we do is, as we see these trends happening, you're going to see voice activated searches as cars become connected to the internet. You will see voice activated searches rise in vehicles. You will see right here, this was a survey that was done, and it was published by SoundHound. And right now, voice activated controls in cars are used, #1, to make phone calls, #2, get directions or navigation, #3, to send text messages, verbally versus voice communication, #4, to request music, but #5 is to ask for local recommendations. So what does that mean when they ask for local recommendations? Like, they're going to ask their car, like, hey Siri or hey Alexa, what's the best pizza place near me? But I think that it could also lead to them finding places that can do automotive work for them. You will see right here that right now, consumers said, I search for an automotive service 23% of the time from my vehicle, right? So let's look at this again. 23% of consumers said, I'm searching for an automotive type of business while I'm in my vehicle through voice activated searches, right? You can see here Lexus, they're advertising Amazon Alexa integrates with Lexus. So again, those online reviews are going to be really, really critical to us in the future, because when I do a manual search on my laptop, it gives me like 3 or 5 choices. When I do a voice activated search, it gives me 1 choice, and that is the #1 person with the most ratings. Now it's important that, like, if you use your Apple iPhone, like Hey Siri, that is going to actually give you reviews based off of Yelp. And if you use like an Android, it's going to come off of Google. But if you look right here, it says 41% of adults conduct at least 1 voice activated search a day. And by 2020, that's expected to count for 50% of all searches. So ladies and gentlemen, I've kind of speeded it up here a little bit. There was a great video that I saw recently. This was shared to me from Danny Greenberg from DEG Web. And I want to thank Danny for sharing this with me. This was a video that was on Channel 4 News. And what it was someone that had a Tesla, and someone had key scratched his vehicle during one of his daughter's sporting activities. And what happened was he had 6 cameras on his Tesla, and those 6 cameras actually caught video of the person that was key scratching his vehicle. Now, I'm not going to play the video for you today, but here's what I think we need to think about. In the future, as we have more cars that are connected to the internet, we're also seeing more cameras in the vehicle. It's important that your technicians understand that when a vehicle has cameras built into it, like this Tesla, and I think you're going to see it in more vehicles in the future, that anything we say or do around that vehicle could actually be recorded on data. So I'll give you an example. I have VivaNet home security. When I'm not at home, I can know every conversation that's going on in my house, or if anybody approaches my doorbell or anybody pulls up to my driveway, and I hear the voices, right? Because I have that turned on. I've got cameras all around my house because I travel so much. I think it's really important that we make sure our employees understand in the future, you don't want to be getting in a customer's car and going through that ashtray. You shouldn't be doing that anyway, but understand it could be captured on camera. We got to make sure what language we're using. We're not getting in that customer's car and turning on their radio while we're cleaning it. I mean, hey, we can deny these things happen, but the reality is they do happen on a regular basis. At the end of the day, understand the vehicle may be watching you. So here's my wish list as I wrap up this webinar. I wish that someone would come out with a feature like my Apple iTunes Genius feature. My Apple's account, it says, Mike, you watch this movie, you might like these movies. Mike, you bought this song, you might like this song. I wish there was a way that when I went to order parts through an electronic parts process, it would say people that bought this part also bought this part. Because I have to believe there's enough algorithms out there and data that somebody out there can come up with a solution to tell me that people that bought this bumper also bought these clips. And that brings it to my attention, their one-time use. I absolutely believe that can be done in our industry. I also believe that when it comes to OEM research, that there's got to be a way out there that it can say people that researched this also looked at this document. So for example, if I'm researching how to replace a quarter panel on a Toyota Camry, I may not know to go look for the installation angle inspection under the blind monitor section. So why can't it make recommendations for me? I also believe that there's got to be a way that we can use artificial intelligence to determine scheduling best practices based on prior history and staffing. I absolutely believe that we need to find a way to utilize technology to integrate the OEM repair procedures more into our estimating systems, right? Because it is very time consuming to research these OEM repair procedures. It's the right thing to do, but how can we use technology to make it easier? Last but not least, torque specs. It's very concerning to me that a lot of people are not checking torque specs when they work on a vehicle, right? And there can be torque specs for the lug nuts, torque specs for the seatbelt bolt, torque specs for the fender bolts. If there could be a way that I could just print out, select all the components I'm removing in the OEM repair procedures and just print out all the torque specs to give to my technician, I think that would be awesome. So ladies and gentlemen, I don't believe our industry has even scratched into 10% of the potential that we could have in regards to utilizing technology in our industry. There's an old country song, I think it was Jerry Reed, and he said from the Smokey and the Bandit movie, he said, we've got a long way to go and a short time to get there. And I believe that's where our industry's at. So ladies and gentlemen, I apologize I went over a little bit. It was my honor. I also apologize for the background noise when my phone rang. I apologize to CIECA for that. It was unprofessional. I thought I'd unplugged it, so I'm so sorry. And Ed and Stacy, I'll turn it back to you. Hope everyone got great value from this, and thank you again. It's been my honor.
Thank you, Mike. Hey, due to the constraints of time, if you submitted a question on your screen, CIECA will work with Mike and get back to you with a response. The questions and answers will also be posted on CIECA.com. If you have any more questions to Mike, here's some contact information for both Mike and his assistant, Tiffany. I'll leave this on the screen for a second so that you can go ahead and copy it down. But Mike indicated that he is available should questions arise. Our next CIECAST will be Tuesday, March 17th at 11 a.m. Central Time. Michael Ortega, Senior Director of Application Development at Insurance Auto Auctions, will be discussing the key to collaboration, combining technology and communication. Don't forget to check CIECA.com for a full schedule of future broadcasts. It's available under the Events tab at the top of the page. CIECA has partnered with the Automotive Management Institute. Attendees of this webinar can take a short quiz on the AMI website to earn credit toward a professional designation. A link to AMI is available on CIECA.com. Please follow CIECA's media platforms to stay up to date on upcoming events and CIECA news. This concludes today's webinar. Thank you for attending.